Yeah. Knowledge is ignorance is the root cause of all suffering. That is the topic. That's what you don't know makes you suffer. Now the thing is that there are two ways, rather two paths to discuss the topic. One is logically, the other is spiritually. Now, so long as you speak logically, then commoners, then you know very well that you will suffer as long as you are very much attached to your body. That is why there is a line in Buddhism: the root cause of suffering is attachment. So, as long as you are very much attached, you suffer. Now, spiritually, if you speak, then also you will suffer until you reach that state or stage. Before that, you will suffer. So, now there's a difference between a magician and the commoners. What magicians can do, commoners cannot do. However, they try. A magician can pull a rabbit out of a hat. That is why we clap. That is why we praise. That is why we try to learn. But you have to understand that there are some calibers, qualities which that particular person has. Had it been so, all the commoners had the same qualities, then we would not have, of course, appreciated that magicians, because everybody has the same quality. Then everybody would say, I can do that. So what's a difference? That is a difference. That difference lies between an enlightened person and the commoners. So the enlightened person has already reached that stage, and it is not that in a few days or following a few steps you will reach that step. So that long you have to suffer, and as long as your soul is attached to your body, you must suffer, because liberation of soul we are talking about. Once the soul is liberated, the picture is different. But so long as soul is not liberated, you are suffering. Now internal suffering, you are talking about internal suffering and all. Now you cannot understand whether any person has perceptual concept or theory, that concept we are talking about. So internal suffering is we can never assess whether the person is suffering internally or not. The physical suffering, we can withstand that physical suffering. So now you will see that there are persons who are not suffering so much due to a minor pain, as long as some of the people suffer due to a minor pain. So that is the difference, that varies actually. Tolerance level varies. Okay, all right. So that is the difference. So every human being is not same, and that what we are talking about, ignorance is the cause of all sufferings. Then we have to go very high. You know, like, so for common, if you talk like common topic, generally if we talk, then we can never assess that. This way you cannot say. Then I will also say, definitely I will say ignorance is not the cause of all sufferings, because once you get to know you are suffering certain problems, you get to know you are suffering mentally, you are suffering physically. So you must be suffering. You must be suffering when you get to know that. So knowledge is the cause of suffering. As I've already said, the knowledge is painful, ignorance is blissful. So long as, why is this life? Because we are living this normal life. I'm the enlightened life, that is different, because everybody cannot live that life. How many of us are living? Some very few examples we can cite. These are those who incarnated. So and fulfill. Yes, right. So generally, if you speak, then I will definitely say ignorance is the cause of suffering. This way you cannot speak. That is why I have talked about the difference between the God and me. So what God can do, like from the smaller example, like magician and me. So what a magician can do, the commoners cannot do. In the same way, where the God resides, what the God can do, we cannot mix up with ourselves with God. That God is not suffering. Because the names, the examples which you have cited, they are God. They are God. Buddhism, you talk. That is why we pray. We do not pray to any commoner. We do not pray to commoners. We pray to God. Buddhism, Buddha, then Jesus, the Buddha, Jesus the Christ, Swami Vivekananda, also God, because there is a picture. I mean, Ramakrishna, they're all God. So yeah, that is why we pray to God. Because, so we have to understand the difference with the commoners and the God. So if you say that he is not suffering, the Jesus the Christ, you know very well that when he was crucified, in that state also he prayed for the well-being of the people who were crucifying him. Can a commoner think of that state? Even we are suffering from a minor problem, minor pain we are suffering. So and you are talking about crucifixion, and so that you have to, that is also, huh?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can already step
Yes, right.
You will look at that person pretty angry.
Uh,
You will have
Starting from two letter foul words, four letter foul words, and the number of letters increases with the intensity of pain. So that is the thing. So God, you have to understand God. What God? God is God. Commoners are commoners. So we cannot cite the example of God and say that God is not suffering. Why I am suffering? I am a common human being. Yes, I can reach my state. I can step forward. Raise, that is not reach, not raise my state. But God is ultimately God. I am not God. God is one. God different though varies. God is one. So what is transmigration of soul? All. So many people are there. So many people cannot be God. Even after transmigration of soul, we only pray to God. So if you talk about transmigration of soul, then we should pray to all the people. Not possible. So you have to understand God. That is why we pray to God. For recovery, for salvation, there is one single energy, that is God. Now number varies, okay, or
But
religion varies.
just one
Right.
question. Like from the previous discussion, as we come to know,
Mhm.
Sir mentioned that we are just changing our start after death.
Right.
So if we come to know about that fact, if we have the knowledge of that after death experience, or rather what is the thing which what happens there, then I think there shouldn't be a problem. Like somebody is going, it is death is just a very small thing for you, and at that point in time you will not curse anybody.
That
So
it's
that is not
that
that is for the
itself
ignorance of
we are
getting, right?
discussing with due respect, that itself is also very much mystery, because in Islam there is no theory of birth and death. They believe that life is one. Life is one. In religion it is not that. That's how life is one. So there is no question of birth and death. One religion is saying, so itself is mystery. We are saying all right. In Christianity, I was going to tell. Contrary, in Christianity, we were told. I also knew that they do not have any word jati sir. Why they do not believe in that theory? So we are talking about birth and transmission, all right. But these process itself is mystery. We are talking about reincarnation, karma, these, all that. But in Islam, it is religion. Religious actually. We respect the religion. Itself the life is one. So you do all the good in your one life, because life is very much precious, that is one. So there is no any question of rebirth. Okay, so it itself is mystery. So we are telling the knowledge, ultimately the knowledge what we are talking itself is mystery if you go by all the theory. So that is why I think solar is in your body, you must be suffering. Otherwise, Ramakrishna, if you also talk about, even Vivekananda had to call in a doctor. Ultimately, had to call in a doctor. When Vivekananda was suffering in Kolkata, there are doctor when he visited. In those days, he was suffering with so many critical diseases. If I am not wrong, above 10,000 rupees required to buy all the medicines and process. In those days, you think of. Ultimately, had to call in a doctor. When Ramakrishna was suffering from that, ultimately called in a doctor. So internal pain we are talking about, we cannot assess whether the person is suffering internally or not. Well, like any death or whatever. You
Mahendra Sarkar was
Mhm.
Dr. Ramakrishna.
Yes, sir.
Mahendra Sarkar was a famous doctor of Kolkata.
Yes, right.
16 rupees visit.
Right. And you will find that there are people who owe their heart in their sleeps. Okay, all right. There are people at the drop of a hat, they will react. Okay, all right. And there are people who will not shed tears so easily. So life varies actually, different. So this way you cannot from one example. He is not like side. There are tolerance level of Mahatma Gandhi. Already we came to know that when he was operated on in those days, there was appendicitis. Okay, all right. He was not anesthetized. Okay, all right. But bore that pain. So you think, as a commoner, can I do that? So he is not any saint. He was any religious person, just commoner. How could he tolerate that pain? And why can't I? So you cannot cite the example that yes, Mahatma Gandhi could tolerate that pain. So why not commoner?
So
I
is
think
there any pain or due to fear we just suffer, like we feel it as a pain?
no
No, pain,
pain.
pain is very nominal. In fact, when there is a headache, you say that I have got a splitting headache, that is nominal. And the medicine you take removes that nominal thing only. But otherwise, everything is psychological. You draw circle, then you see longer circle, always a psychological one. And the point is the pain. And so the medicine comes a placebo effect. Medicine may have the placebo effect as well. So you don't know what this medicine is given to you for. Or say a particular sugar pill is given to you for curing your headache. You will see that after taking that after some time you feel much better. If you are asked how do you feel now, it's much better. But the doctor knows very well that he has given you simply a sugar pill. So that's psychological to a great extent.
Yes, one thing more. So, God incarnated, as you are talking about, they always try to teach us the purpose of life. That is why there is a line: the purpose of life is to know the purpose of life. So, we do not know ultimately many of us. Once we know gradually, it is not all of a sudden. Today, you are discussing all of a sudden, we cannot. It is a long process. Sooner or later, depends also. So, that is why I would like to quote a poem to make you understand. Uh, from the Gitanjali, like I had gone a begging from door to door when thy golden chariot appeared in the distance like a gorgeous dream. And I wondered who was the king of all kings. My hopes rose high and me felt my evil days were at an end. I stood waiting for palms to be given unasked, and for wealth scattered on all sides in the dust. The chariot stopped where I stood. Thy glance fell on me, and thou camest down with a smile. I felt that the luck of my life had changed at last. But then all of a sudden, thou didst hold out thy right hand and say, what hast thou to give me? Ah, what a kingly jest was it to open thy palm to a beggar and beg. I was confused and stood undecided. Then from my wallet I slowly took out the least little grain of corn and gave it to thee. But how great my surprise when at the day's end I emptied my bag on the floor to find the least little grain of gold among the poor heap. I bitterly wept and wished I had had the heart to give thee my all. So that is a poem. So God came in order to teach that beggar the lesson. The more you give, the more you generate. That beggar could not understand. He thought that the king came, he will deliver a lot of wealth and he will be rich overnight. But in fact, God, so when that held out his hand to the beggar, he thought, I'm a beggar, what can I give? So from his wallet he drew the least little grain of corn, that is as small as possible, and gave it to the king in the form of God, like incarnate, as we are talking about, in the same way to God. So that was testing examination. You talk about that is that. So given he was undecided what to do, then small grain of corn. But he was telling that at the day's end, what happens? He empties his bag on the floor. He begged, and he was of course dejected. Might be dejected because he from the king he got a small. He got nothing. Rather, he had to give a small again. But when he emptied his bag on the floor, what he found that a least little grain of gold among the poor heap. That means
And
as
he
he
bitterly.
yes, as you reap, as you sow, so shall you reap, like this theory. So he gave a least little grain of corn to God, and that is why in exchange of that he got a least little grain of gold. So had he given all his whatever he had, then he could have been rich. That is why at the end he says that I bitterly wept and wished I had at the heart my all. That is why the man proposes, God disposes.
Ravindranath couldn't translate the lines properly actually because the Bengali line had so much impact.
Right.
তখন নারী চোখের জলে দুটি নয়ন ভরে তোমায় কেন দিই আমার সকল শূন্য করে.
Right.
Beautiful line in Bengali.
I did
And
not.
in English,
Uh.
because I wept bitterly and wished I had at the heart to give thee my all.
Right.
Not at all impactful.
Right.
Whereas the Bengali one, it is very precise. That's why when he got the award, then critics told that if the Swedish Academy understood Bengali, how many prizes would they have given to Ravindranath?
Right. Right. Right.
Seeing this poor translation,
Right.
they gave the prize.
That is the thing.
That's why if you go through the Bengali poem, the name of the poem is Kripon. So you will see that how beautiful and what a spiritual connotation is there in that particular.
The original language is Bengali or English? The poem? Bengali. Bengali.
In Sanchoita you will find it.
Okay.
Rabindranath Tagore Sanchoita is there you will find Kripon, the name of the poem.
Hmm.
And that is in English, translated into English and published in Gitanjali. That was this poem which you have just recited was suggested for studies of students of class 12 earlier.
That's all.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.